Not because you haven't, but because they never will. They don't have that option. They will absorb every mistake you make, every misread signal, every well-intentioned habit that lands wrong, and they will still be at the door when you come home, still bring you the toy, still press their body against yours when you sit on the couch. That loyalty is the most beautiful thing about them, and it is also the reason this is so easy to miss, because a dog in pain, emotional pain, the kind we're talking about today, doesn't look like a dog in pain. They look like a normal dog, maybe a little quieter than they used to be. Maybe a little slower to come when you call. Maybe their tail wags slightly less than it did a year ago and you haven't been able to explain why. This video is the explanation. We're going to cover 10 things that hurt your dog, not through neglect, not through cruelty, but through love that got the details wrong. Some of these you'll recognize immediately, some will surprise you, and at least one of them we can almost promise you is something you did today, not to make you feel bad, to make it stop, because your dog can't ask you to. So we're asking for them. You love them out loud at the wrong moments. Picture the scene. Your dog is trembling, a storm outside, or a loud knock at the door, or a vacuum cleaner in the next room. They press against you, low, tense, their eyes wide and scanning, and you do what every loving owner does instinctively. You pull them close, you speak in a high, warm, reassuring voice. You stroke them repeatedly and tell them it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And in doing so, in that act of pure instinctive love, you make it worse. Here's what your dog's nervous system registers in that moment. Fear arrived, and then something important happened. Their trusted person responded with elevated energy, with heightened attention, with repeated physical contact. To a dog reading body language rather than language itself, that response pattern doesn't say, there is nothing to fear. It says, something significant is happening and my human agrees. You are not comforting them, you are confirming the threat. Research in canine anxiety consistently shows that owners who respond to fearful behavior with high energy reassurance inadvertently reinforce the fear response. The dog's brain creates an association. This stimulus produces fear, and the fear produces reward in the form of intense attention and contact. The stimulus becomes more powerful, not less. What your dog actually needs in a moment of fear is not your emotion, it is your steadiness. A calm, low voice, a relaxed body, normal breathing, the signal that you have assessed the situation and found nothing worth concern. You don't ignore them, you don't push them away, you simply become deliberately, consciously, the most stable thing in the room. That stability is not cold, it is the deepest form of protection you can offer, and your dog's nervous system will recognize it immediately. You take things from them without warning. Your dog is lying peacefully with a chew toy. You walk over, take it from their mouth, examine it briefly, and hand it back. No big deal to you, just checking it was safe. But here's what happened inside your dog in that 5-second interaction. A resource they were engaged with, one their brain had already registered as valuable, was removed without signal, without negotiation, without replacement. The taking was sudden, the taking was by the most powerful creature in their world, and then it came back, also without explanation. For a dog, that sequence doesn't register as, my owner was checking on me. It registers as, the things I value are not secure. The things I value can be removed at any moment by someone I cannot negotiate with. The things I value are not truly mine. Repeat that experience enough times and you don't get a dog who learned to share. You get a dog who learned to guard, who eats faster so they finish before something disappears, who stiffens when a hand approaches their bowl, who eventually growls, and whose owner is genuinely confused about why, because they were only ever trying to help. The American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior identifies resource guarding as one of the most preventable behavior problems in domestic dogs, and traces the majority of cases directly back to repeated, well-intentioned resource removal by owners. The correct approach is never to take without giving. Approach your dog while they have something valuable and add something better. A high-value treat dropped near the item. Teach a genuine exchange cue built entirely on reward. Make your approach near their possessions. Predict good things arriving, not good things disappearing. Your dog doesn't need to learn that you can take anything you want. They already know that. What they need to learn is that you won't. You force social interactions. They didn't choose. A friend comes over, they love dogs, they reach for your dog immediately. Hand extended, leaning forward, direct eye contact, moving fast. Your dog backs away, or looks away, or presses against the wall behind them, and you say, it's okay, they're friendly, come say hi. And your dog, because they love you and because you asked, submits to the interaction they just clearly communicated they didn't want. This happens in dog parks, in veterinary waiting rooms, on walks when strangers crouch down uninvited, in living rooms every single day when well-meaning guests override every signal a dog sends. And every time it happens, your dog learns one lesson that costs you more than you realize. My signals don't protect me. When I communicate I don't want this, it happens anyway. The world, and the person I trust most, does not respond to what I say. The science on this is extensive and consistent. Dogs who have their social choices repeatedly overridden by their owners show higher baseline stress hormone levels, more frequent displacement behaviors, and develop significantly more reactivity toward the triggers they were forced to engage with. The dog who was pushed to greet strangers despite signaling discomfort becomes the dog who growls at strangers on the street. The forced exposure didn't build confidence, it built resentment. Your job when your dog communicates social discomfort is not to override it, it is to honor it first, and then gradually, on their timeline, build positive associations through choice. Let them approach when they're ready, reward them when they do. If they never fully get there with certain people or situations, that is also an acceptable outcome. A dog who trusts that their signals are heard is a dog who feels safe enough to be curious. Curiosity is the path to confidence. Force is the path to fear. You punish what you don't understand. Your dog did something wrong. At least it looked wrong from where you were standing. They snapped at another dog at the park. They growled when a child reached for their face. They lunged towards something on the walk that seemed to you completely harmless, and you corrected them sharply, immediately, because that behavior, aggressive, reactive, unpredictable, is not okay. Here is what you need to know about almost every snap, growl, and lunge that a dog owner punishes. It was not the first sentence, it was the last one. Before that snap, there was a stiffened body that nobody noticed. Before that growl, there was a whale eye that went unread. Before that lunge, there were 3 weeks of a dog communicating. This situation is beyond what I can handle, and receiving no response. The growl is not the problem. The growl is the warning, and a dog who has learned that warnings get punished doesn't become a dog who stops feeling unsafe. They become a dog who stops warning. That is the dog that bites without apparent cause, because every apparent cause was punished out of existence. The American College of Veterinary Behaviorists is explicit on this point. Punishing warning signals in dogs is one of the most dangerous things an owner can do. Not because it teaches the dog to be aggressive, but because it removes the communication layer between what the dog feels and what the dog does. When your dog growls, your first response should never be correction. It should be, what is my dog trying to tell me, and why haven't I heard it until now? You turn their safe space into a consequence. Most owners know by now that crates are not cages, that dogs are den animals, that a properly introduced crate is meant to function as a bedroom, a private, calm, secure space that belongs entirely to the dog. Most owners know this, and then they point to the crate with frustration in their voice after their dog did something wrong, and everything they built collapses in that single moment. Dogs form associative memories with a speed and permanence that should give every owner pause. One strongly emotional pairing, crate plus your anger, crate plus rejection, crate plus the voice you use when something has gone wrong, is sufficient to begin rewriting what that space means. Not fully, not immediately, but enough to plant something that grows. The dog who was once calm in their crate becomes the dog who hesitates at the entrance, who lies down but doesn't settle, who begins to whine when the door closes, not because they were never crate trained, but because the crate stopped being safe. This matters far beyond crate training. The principle extends to any space, any object, any ritual that you connect to your emotional state when you're at your worst. The bed you send them to with frustration becomes the bed they approach with anxiety. The walk you cancel as punishment becomes the walk they start anticipating with uncertainty. The routine they counted on that disappears when you're angry becomes proof that stability has conditions. A dog's safe spaces need to be unconditionally safe, not earned, not revocable, not available on your good days and withdrawn on your difficult ones. Keep them sacred because your dog has very few of them and they need every single one. You misread their body and keep going. This one sits at the center of more broken trust between dogs and owners than almost anything else on this list. Your dog is being petted, or examined, or held in a position they didn't choose. And somewhere during that interaction, they send a signal, a small one, a lip lick, a slight turn of the head, a weight shift away from your hands, a blink that comes slightly too slowly, and you don't notice. Or you notice and you keep going because it seems fine, because they're not growling, because this is just a quick thing and then it'll be over. What your dog experiences in the moment you override their signal, even a small one, even once, is something researchers call a boundary violation, not in the human therapeutic sense, but in the literal behavioral sense. A communication was sent and not received. The interaction continued past the point the dog indicated they were comfortable with. Multiply this across thousands of small interactions across years of living together, and what you have accumulated is a dog who has learned that their body language doesn't move you, that discomfort they express doesn't change what happens next, that the gap between what they feel and what you respond to is permanent and unbridgeable. This is the origin story of a dog who goes still when handled rather than leaning in, a dog who tolerates your touch rather than seeks it, a dog that once loved being groomed and now needs to be restrained for it. They didn't change, they learned to read the small signals before they have to become large ones. The lip lick, the head turn, the weight shift, the slow blink. These are complete sentences. Respond to them as such and watch what happens to the quality of every physical interaction you have with your dog from this point forward. You make leaving and returning into emotional events. Every morning you leave for work, you give your dog a lengthy goodbye. You crouch down, you hold their face. You tell them you'll be back soon in a voice that contains real emotion because leaving them genuinely makes you feel something. And every evening when you return, the greeting is an event. Your voice goes up, your energy spikes, the dog leaps, and you let them because it's the best part of both your days. This is love, completely genuine love. And it is quietly, consistently teaching your dog that your departures and arrivals are among the most significant emotional events in their life, which means that the hours in between, the hours you are gone, are the hours between two emotional peaks, hours your dog spends in the valley of an anticipation they have no ability to manage. Research on canine separation anxiety identifies the owner's departure and arrival rituals as the single most significant factor in whether a dog develops separation distress, more predictive in many cases than how long the owner is actually absent. A dog who experiences intense emotional partings and reunions learns to experience the entire period of separation as emotionally loaded. A dog who experiences calm, unremarkable departures and calm, warm, but measured returns learns that your coming and going is normal, manageable, not a crisis. This doesn't mean you stop loving your dog when you walk out the door. It means you love them in a way that doesn't teach their nervous system to treat your absence as an emergency. Leave calmly, return warmly but gently. Give them 60 seconds to settle before you engage. The reunion can still be the best part of both your days, just without the emotional spike that cost your dog the hours before it. You expect them to live in your timeline. You have 15 minutes before you need to leave. The walk needs to happen now. You clip the leash, walk at your pace, redirect every sniff that adds more than 5 seconds, and return home in exactly the time you had. Your dog went outside, they moved their body, they emptied their bladder. The walk happened, but the walk didn't happen. Not for them. A dog's experience of a walk is not primarily physical. It is olfactory, cognitive, and deeply regulatory. The sniff that you cut short after 5 seconds was still being processed. The patch of grass they wanted to investigate contained information they never got to finish reading. The pace you set was your pace, not theirs. And the gap between those two paces, accumulated across hundreds of walks across years, is the gap between a dog who is genuinely enriched by their time outside and a dog who is simply aired. We covered the science of this in an earlier video. Dogs who are allowed genuine sniff-led walks show measurably lower stress hormones than dogs who cover the same distance at a faster human-led pace. The conclusion isn't nuanced. The sniff is not incidental to the walk. For your dog, the sniff is the walk. Beyond the walk, the same principle applies to everything in your dog's day. Their timeline for processing a new environment is not yours. Their timeline for warming up to a new person is not yours. Their timeline for finishing an interaction, settling after stimulation, recovering from something that frightened them, none of it maps to your schedule. The single most consistent gift you can give your dog is the willingness to sometimes operate on their clock instead of yours. Not always, not at the cost of everything else, but enough and often enough that your dog experiences the world at a pace their nervous system was actually built for. You give them your presence without your attention. You are home. You have been home for 3 hours. Your dog is in the same room as you for most of that time. By every measure, you have spent the evening together. and your dog is lonelier than they were this morning. This is the invisible hurt that almost no one talks about because it requires us to examine not just what we do, but what we don't do. Physical presence is not the same as attention, and for a dog, for whom you are the entire emotional center of their world, the difference between having you in the room and having you actually there is felt at a level that is genuinely measurable. Research into canine social bonding has found that the quality of owner attention, whether it is genuinely interactive and reciprocal versus simply co-located, predicts dog well-being markers, including stress hormone levels, attachment security, and willingness to engage with environmental challenges. A dog who receives 30 minutes of genuine, phone-down eye contact including responsive interaction per day shows stronger well-being markers than a dog who spends 8 hours with a distracted owner. Your dog doesn't need all of you all the time, but they need some of you to actually be present. Put the phone down once a day for 10 minutes and be nowhere else. Look at them, let them look back at you, respond when they shift, sigh, nudge. Exist in the room as someone who is actually there. This isn't a training technique, it isn't enrichment, it is simply the experience of being seen by the person your dog has organized their entire existence around. And for a dog, being truly seen by that person is the thing that makes everything else bearable. You forget that they are watching you even when you've forgotten them. This last one is the quietest hurt on the list, and in some ways the most important. Your dog watches you more than you will ever fully realize, not to monitor for food or for walks or for the leash appearing near the door. They watch the way you hold your body when you're stressed versus when you're relaxed. They watch the way your face changes when you're on a difficult phone call. They watch whether you move through the house with lightness or with weight. They watch who you look at and for how long and with what kind of expression. Research from multiple canine cognition laboratories has confirmed that dogs read human emotional states with an accuracy that consistently surprises researchers. They discriminate between happy and angry facial expressions. They detect stress through scent changes in human sweat before the stress has manifested in any visible behavior. They adjust their own emotional state in response to yours, not because they were trained to, but because 15,000 years of living alongside us built a nervous system that is specifically calibrated to read the nervous system of the person they belong to. What this means in practical terms is something most owners never consider. Your dog absorbs your bad days, your anxiety, your unresolved tension, the unspoken stress you carry home from work and try to leave at the door. Your dog picks all of it up. They can't ask you what's wrong. They can't help directly. They can only respond to what they detect by staying closer, by becoming slightly more alert, by carrying a version of what you're carrying in their own body. The dog who seems anxious for no reason is sometimes the dog of an anxious owner. The dog who seems unsettled in the evenings is sometimes the dog of a person who brings the weight of their day home without realizing it. You cannot be perfectly calm. You cannot protect your dog from every difficult emotion you feel, but you can be aware. You can notice when you're bringing something into the room that your dog is going to pick up. You can take a breath before you greet them. You can choose to be steady in the moments when steadiness is something you have to consciously reach for. Your dog is watching. They are always watching, and everything they see shapes who they are. 10 things, none of them dramatic, none of them the result of not caring enough. All of them fixable, starting today, starting with the next interaction you have with the dog who is, right now, somewhere in the same building as you or waiting for you to come home without a single complaint about any of it. That's the thing about dogs that is almost too much to sit with when you really let it land. They don't keep score. They don't hold what happened yesterday against what happens today. They wake up every morning and they choose you again, now fully, completely, without reservation, regardless of whether yesterday was one of the days on this list. They have never needed you to be perfect. They have only ever needed you to be trying. You're watching this video, you're still here. That already means something. Share this with one person whose dog deserves to be understood better. Subscribe for a new video every week and tell us in the comments, which one of these are you going to change first? Your dog is counting on you. They always have been. And now, finally, you know exactly how to show up for them.